And let's see. Jesse, would you like to do the flag salute?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Suzanne, could you please take roll call?
Trustee Ferdal?
Here.
Trustee Doggett?
Here.
Trustee Levin?
Here.
Trustee Chiacari?
Here.
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in the front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television, PCT, records and broadcasts its meetings. Reporting out on the closed session topics, the board met in closed session and no action was taken. Approval of the minutes of September. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's recommended the board approve the minutes of September 18th, regular board meeting.
Thank you.
So I have one question on the minutes for September 18th. On item 11, saying district business, is the time supposed to be accurately portrayed?
I asked that question myself, Ms. Chiacari, and Suzanne told me that it's the time that it was scheduled as opposed to the time that it actually happened.
Okay. And I'm fine.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
And then it's also recommended that we approve the minutes from September 26, 2019. Are there any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
And approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item should be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the items listed on the agenda or consent agenda? Do you have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Communications. Speakers wishing to address the board on items on the agenda or not on the agenda may complete speaker cards and submit them to any member of the staff, to any member at the staff table. If you are addressing the board on a non-agenda item, please be aware that the provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting or discussing such matters at this meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic. LSEA?
Good evening. My word for you tonight is communication. LSEA still has not received a response from our board members from our latest request to have informal meetings arranged. I sent an email on August 28th and have yet to hear a response one way or the other. You see this room is in red tonight. I know I thought I had retired this shirt for a while, and here we are, and it's only October. Do you sense the tone? The communication between board members and the community at large needs to change. The communication between the district office and the teachers needs to change. It took 8 days for Heather to communicate to employees about the additional admin position. That's a lot of festering. Quite frankly, elected officials, you can't continue to seem so disengaged. You are all here for the right reasons. We know that. I know this, we all know this. Please put this into practice. If you can't or don't want to sit with LSEA leadership, fine. Communicate somehow with our teachers and staff. Come visit the schools. Come talk to the employees of the district. You are here representing the people of Pacifica who have elected you. You've been elected to do what's best for our kids. District office, keep us in the loop before the loop is closed. Talk to those of us who are with those kids every day. Communicate.
And CSEA?
Well, I've rewritten this 3 times, so we'll see how it goes. And I really don't know where to start. There is so much I could say, but 3 minutes is not enough time. I'll start with our concerns with what has gone on for better than 6 months in vacancies within the classified unit. These positions have not been filled, and I don't feel that real efforts were ever made. We didn't see postings during the summer, and yet 6 months went by. We didn't have these vacancies filled. When we have met, we've been told, no money, no money, no money. Can't fill them, no money, no money. Wow, where did they come up with the money for this new administration person? None for classified, none for teachers, but we certainly could hire more staff or people in the district office. Doesn't make sense to me, because we're out there working with the students. Those are the ones we're here for, all of us. But yet it doesn't seem like that is what's really hit home with the board and the district office staff and administration. As we all know, there are numerous vacancies, teachers and classified. In my near 14 years, the first people who've gotten cut are classified. We're tired of it. First they come along, they hire us, and they say, your hours are going to be 6 hours a week. 6 hours a day. What happens? 2 years later, they come by and say, we don't have any money. We're going to cut you a half hour. That half hour never came back to people. That's shorted us. Do they care about the worker bees out there? No. They have not demonstrated that they care about us. We wonder why we can't fill our vacancies. McDonald's pays more than we do. Home Depot, Lowe's, all these places pay more than we do. Why would they come to Pacifica? Because there's no money here. Come on, let's face it. Board, we need your help. LSEA, I'm so thankful that we have joined together to work together. You've got to start listening to us. We cannot continue to get employees at the rate of pay you're paying now. Thank you.
And people wishing to address the board, Ella Dwyer? Ella?
My word for you is frustration. As a teacher, on the day-to-day, with 128 students and ever-increasing demands on what we are expected to do in the classroom, how can we possibly address the needs of students that deserve more? You find the money for a new admin, yet you cannot find the funds to incentivize special ed teachers desperately needed. Frustrating.
Jennifer Mitchell?
Oh, don't start till I get there, Maria. As quick as I can. I have a sprained ankle. Hi, I'm Jennifer Mitchell, everyone's favorite loudmouth kindergarten teacher. My word for you tonight is transparency. Sadly, this is a message I've delivered previously to the Pacifica School Board, but apparently it bears repeating. We've been constantly told there's no money for raises, yet there was a closed board meeting to appoint an additional administrator at an administrator's salary without the community knowing anything about it. This action was duplicitous, plain and simple. Adding to the list of things that seem suspect, many of us worked tirelessly on parcel tax campaigns, and we promised the community transparency on how the money was going to be spent. Parcel tax monies can be spent on teachers' salaries, not administrative salaries. The natural assumption one makes is that teachers are the people that actually work with the children. They are not administrators who have limited student contact. The district is currently using parcel tax money to pay people who have limited student contact, and they're calling them teachers. Teacher on special assignment is really an assistant principal. Specialists are not people who have classrooms, nor do they teach students. I'm not trying to disparage these people or what they do, but let's be clear, they're not classroom teachers. This is disingenuous, and it puts community support for the parcel tax at risk. The teachers in this district are now officially the lowest paid in the county, yet the administrators make more than their peers in comparable districts, considerably more. This is shameful. And when community members are made aware of it, this discrepancy, they're rightfully appalled. On a personal note, I have asked for 2 years now for money for curriculum, and I've been told there is nothing to reimburse me, no money to reimburse me. I was promised reimbursement last year by a high-level administrator for phonics supplies, a total of $80. I was made this promise in January. By June, I had not seen the money, so I gave up. This year, I'm an early adopter of our new phonics curriculum. It's a move I welcome. It's a tremendous amount of work, and we need supplies to house and organize these materials. We were told we would get that. We got about half of what we needed and were promised. And now, surprise, there's no more money. We're talking about $30 for my classroom. So let me get this straight. So there's no money for curriculum totaling in the hundreds of dollars, but there's money for administrators in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So is there money or isn't there? I guess there's money for higher paid district office administrators, but not the boots on the ground folks who actually interact with and teach the children. The actions of this administration and the school board are suspect, shady, sneaky, deceitful, and many more SAT words, but they are not transparent. In a district this size with a community like ours, transparency matters.
Natalie Abinante.
You got it.
My word for you tonight is support. For those of you who don't know, I'm the RSP teacher at Ocean Shore. I know you're searching for more me's, and I know there aren't any. But I don't want to talk about that. We've talked about that. I want to talk about the people who are here. A big part of my job is hearing, so I've got a student who, and then we figure out a plan together. So let's talk about who is here. I've got a gen ed teacher who isn't trained in special education, spending their own time creating materials for students who are now full inclusion without any support. I've got a para who is working to create and find curriculum for the classroom they're expected to run because there isn't a teacher. I've got a para who is trying to support students in the general education classroom that is doing work that the student just isn't ready for yet. I've got a school psychologist who's trying to write academic-based IEPs without any academic training. I've got a case manager who has too many students on their caseload, also trying to support other teachers and paras in this district. How is the district supporting them? There's a lot of discussion about how to support people we may or may not find. How is the district supporting those of us who are here right now? Let's figure out a plan, and this time, let's do it together.
Jonathan Harris.
Thanks for starting. I appreciate it. My word for you tonight is leadership. Because we care, teachers are taking on extra work, coaching new teachers, writing sub-plans for unstaffed classrooms, taking on extra students, tutoring kids who are not receiving resource support, missing prep periods to cover classrooms, finding materials to teach English learners and unsupported RSP students. And at the same time, we now know that we are the lowest paid district in the county. We've been taxed to the breaking point, and we do not see leadership who's providing viable solutions or support. We feel unheard, unsupported, and disrespected by the district at this point. It seems to us that all support and money is rising to the top. For one, our administrators make a salary over the county average, while Pacifica's teachers are dead last. But also we watch the district as it hides administrative costs by creating teachers on special assignment positions, which almost entirely support administrators instead of students or teachers. Teachers in these positions are hardworking and talented, but when our teacher shortage leaves classrooms without teachers, it's inexcusable and immoral for these teachers on special assignment to still be at the DO serving administrators instead of students. This demonstrates a tremendous lack of leadership and a misunderstanding of priorities. There are many days this year when our site administrators and teachers are scrambling to cover classrooms, especially special ed classrooms, while our TOSAs are still working to support the district at the administration. In addition to this, we see that our top administrators are creating yet more positions in support of themselves, including a new human resources person. Teaching jobs keep getting more difficult too, but instead of more help, we're losing the help that we need to run a class. Unfilled positions for paras, classroom aides, and resource specialists. I know the district claims that by getting a new HR person to help resolve these shortages, they think they're helping the problem. We're just not buying it. We all know that the real reason Pacifica is having a hard time filling positions is because we do not pay enough to be competitive. Between the HR position and all our teachers on special assignment, alone, we could fund a raise for a membership somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6%. This will draw teachers to Pacifica. The manner in which this new HR person was created lacked in leadership, transparency, and respect for your labor partners. Every year the district comes to the bargaining table decrying that there's no money, and we see the budget. We know the pickings are slim. But it's insulting to see that the district spends all its large sums of money to support district administration without consulting their labor partners. It seems shady and dishonest, to be honest with you all. Able leadership would consult its labor partners seeking advice and ideas, probably come up with a solution to this problem that would benefit everyone rather than grab all the money for the DO before we come to the negotiating table. And this is not the only situation like this. Without consulting LSEA or CSEA, our district is making some ridiculous decisions. A plan to reimburse families for tutoring in lieu of RSP services? This doesn't seem equitable for families who could not pay the costs up front. This does not access the curriculum of our classrooms, as tutors will not work in conjunction with classroom teachers. If the district dared to have enough respect for teachers to actually talk to them, go to school sites, watch what happens in schools, we'd gladly come to help with solutions that make sense. LSEA has repeatedly asked members of the board to have a monthly meeting to discuss issues and build communication. We're still waiting for a reply. We are your constituents, and we keep this district running. We have some respect for us as professionals who care deeply for the children of Pacifica. Decrees from an ivory tower do not benefit anyone. They're out of touch and do not represent leadership. We look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
Joan Wiedemann?
So, Joan Weideman.
Sorry.
That's okay. I have lived in this community for 25 years. For 20 of those years, I have devoted my passion to the kids of this community and to the community. For those of you who don't know me, I was a volunteer for 13 years when my kids were in the school district for 11. I was served on the school board for 12 years. That wasn't enough, so I went back to school and became a teacher. So I currently am really honored to be in this district and teaching here. And I teach math at IBL. I have 2 of the co-taught classes, and that's why I'm here tonight. I realize that the district has always got difficult challenges before them. It's never an easy decision. There's competing constituencies that need to be addressed. I think one of the things that would really help in times of difficult situations where we don't have enough special education teachers and enough paras is for us to come together and have a conversation. And I've seen the district and some administration and special ed having this conversation, but the people who also need to be included in that are the gen ed teachers. And as I sit in the copy room and people are like, here's what we could do, here's what we could do. Is that possible? We don't know. But what I've seen from this community for the last 20 years is that when we face a crisis and we face it together, and we problem solve it, and we're all partners in that decision-making process, we do great things. And this district has overcome immense difficulties over the years
but it's when we are all working together and having conversations. And that's not just little meetings here and little meetings there, but really focused either work-study sessions or administrations coming to the specific sites. And I really recommend it be specific sites, because the issues at IBL are very different than a K-5 and are very different than a K-8. The students that are at those different sites have different issues. We have different socioeconomic issues, we have different ethnic issues, we have different issues at each site. So by coming together and talking about it as a site and coming and talking about what could be done, I think we could find some really good solutions to some of these problems. The other piece is plan for the worst and prepare, plan for the worst and hope for the best. We walked into this situation knowing we didn't have RSP teachers, but at the last minute things were scrambling. What is the contingency plan? We're at that point now. We're scrambling this year. You've made decisions about the HR situation to try and fix that. So let's talk about, okay, if everything goes really well and this HR person is fabulous and fixes all our problems, great. What's the contingency plan if that person cannot achieve the goals that has been set by the district? Thank you. Rachel Merlot.
Hi. My word tonight is negotiations. I would like to begin by acknowledging the lack of communication from the district when trying to set up negotiation dates for the 2019-2020 school year. LSEA proposed a number of dates on June 15th when negotiations were completed to the 2018-2019 school year. It was stated at that time that the district's interest was to get out of the backwards negotiating cycle we are in. We did not get any response from the district until September, and are now not starting the negotiating process for the school year until November. This is not getting out of the backwards cycle. In the meantime, the district has cut school site funds. For my site, that equals $15,000 less. They have spent funds on consultant fees and have now hired another new position for more administration that supports the district office. The district office has a number of teachers on special assignment doing administration duties while we do not have teachers in the classroom. Over the years, we have listened to the district state that their priority is to attract and retain teachers, but we continue to see their actions do not support that priority. How is cutting school site funding and hiring district administrators attracting and retaining teachers? We know what would help to attract and retain teachers. Pay them more. Listen to their needs. Do not cut site funds that impact materials and other classroom supports. Teachers can do their jobs without these district positions, but the district cannot do their job without teachers. Year after year, we show up at the negotiations table to be told there is no money. It seems it's always spent. Is this going to be the case once again in November? Teachers continue to come up with more creative ways to support our students while adding more to our plates. It is hard to watch the district get more support for their duties while we continue to get less. Thank you.
Darcy Fields.
Well, I really wasn't planning to talk tonight, but I felt I had to. For several years now, it's no money, no money, no money. About a year and a half ago, food service was trying to go from, well, we are at step 44, and we are trying to go up to, I was hoping step 50. We were told, oh no, you only move one step. We can't raise you. And I said, you know what? I don't think that has been raised in 20 years, our steps. So we got 2 steps, so we're at a 46, even though 48 makes it a living wage. But we're still at 46, which we appreciated. We were glad to at least get that. But right now, I am sick of hearing no money, no money, no money. When a Jeep's bought, when 6 months after our step increase, somebody else got a 6-step increase. I'm thinking, well, wait a second, they're only supposed to get a 1-step increase, you know. We were considered lucky to get 2. And now this, the administrator. We have maintenance positions that haven't been filled. We've had maintenance workers now that have had injuries because they're overcompensating for the jobs that aren't there. It's just getting ridiculous. People have asked me in the past, is the district really that dire? And I go, man, they always have money for what they want. and you guys just proved it. And I always say, and I'm sorry, the board seems to rubber stamp everything the DO wants. Thank you.
And I do believe that's it. Oh, did I miss anybody? Correspondence.
I actually have a couple of correspondences. Hi. So one exciting piece of correspondence that I will share is that we received news yesterday from E-rate funding, Category 2, which we did not think to apply for previously, $240,000. That will be used for routers and switches for, so that when we do our tech refresh, that each classroom site will have their own. Other correspondence, let's see, I'm trying to think about what's still relevant, is that the North County Water District is having their 75th anniversary. And that the California Department Special Education has reviewed our performance indicator review plan that was proposed explained in the spring and a part of our LCAP, and so that's been passed, an important piece of information. And then one more is the Ohlone Portola Heritage Day on Saturday, November 2nd.
Who else would like to go?
I don't have any correspondence, but I did go to the Library Advisory Committee yesterday, and they are working on getting the word out about the new library and the upgrade, trying to make sure that the residents of Pacifica know what's going on. They're trying to find a strategy to get that information out. So they're working with a consultant, but they're having a little difficulty raising awareness of what's happening. So, and then I also went with you guys, to the CSBA Masters in Governance course 2 with you guys. I did course 1 by myself. So that's pretty much it.
Elizabeth?
Okay, so this past couple weeks, of course, there was the Fog Fest, and usually I've helped with the band with the parking, but luckily Crystal Pepin stepped in to do that for me, and haven't checked with her yet to see if she's recovered. It's a lot of work, so I really appreciate her doing that, and then the funds for that will go to the music program. Went to the Workforce Housing Task Force, the new San Mateo County one. I went with Heather and representatives from all the different school districts, trying to come up with solutions for workforce housing and the funding and so forth. The Pony Plop at Valimar, and then Cabrillo on Sunday had a build-in brunch, which was a really cute idea I hadn't seen done before. They had like makerspace activities for the kids on Sunday morning, and then brunch food for the adults. And Home Depot, the most popular thing seemed to be Home Depot had supplied little building kits where they could do a birdhouse or a boat or an airplane. Some required no tools, some actually had tacks and hammers, which was interesting to watch. And they had Lego table and pipe cleaner table where they could make a friend, like from Toy Story 4, stuff like that. So they, like a little Forky or Sporky or whatever that was. And then today, the LSEA, CSEA social over at the golf course. And it seemed to be well attended by most everyone who was just here.
I have nothing to report out.
What? It's crazy talk.
I know.
Okay. Well, so I attended the Master in Governance Course 2 with Trustee Doggett and Superintendent Olson. That was on the 21st of September in Santa Rosa, and then also attended that special meeting that we all had to discuss the hire that we made for a personnel specialist.
That was the 26th. And then this last Tuesday, I made a presentation in Baltimore at the Future of Education Finance Summit. So that was interesting, and just released a report on weighted student funding systems across the country. So just trying to keep my knowledge going here. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it.
I went to the special meeting that was called for the HR person. Interim, should be noted. Also went to the Fog Fest. I volunteered for Ortega, and we were at the turkey leg. I don't know the name of the thing, but it's one with the turkey legs. And it was crazy. I hope you guys make a lot of money.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And there were a lot of people there, and there were a lot of children. There were a lot of babies, toddlers. So I think the future of Pacifica School District with the attendance is going to go up a little bit. But that's it.
So, sorry, I forgot to mention that I did my volunteer work at Fog Fest serving beers for Cabrilla, actually for the kids, but not to the kids, but for the kids. And I have to say that I think the largest contingency in the parade were the preschools. They just kind of, there's at least 3 different preschools that went through. So I'm just hoping if we get even half of those little kids into our district, that would be great.
Yes, it was kind of like the old days too, like pushing a stroller, holding one kid, and then the other kids like holding the stroller, lots of kids. Okay, so moving on to district business. District goals. The district values and goals provided in our Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more of the goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees, and they're also up there. 11A, Resolution Number 2019-1010-A, Week of the School Administrator, and this falls under Goal Number 1. Heather.
So I, on the board agenda, included the resolution, the Week of the School Administrator, and rather than read it here, it's my intention, like last year, is that we would read it at the work study where all of the school site administrators would be. So you have to approve it during a regular meeting, but then we will celebrate it and recognize them next week, if you're okay with that.
Yes. All right, so do we have a motion to approve Resolution Number 2019-1010-A, Week of the School Administrator?
Motion to approve.
Second? And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
11B, Resolution Number 2019-1010-B, Statement of Assurance for Pupil Textbook and Instructional Materials. And this is LCAP Goal Number 1, Governance. Will.
So this one is the one that's the public hearing, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
7:35.
So this is an odd thing, but it's 7:34, and we have to wait until 7:35. Oh, now it's 7:35. Perfect.
All right, so what you have in front of you is a recommendation for a resolution regarding assurance of pupil textbooks and instructional material. This is in compliance with the Ed Code 6119 for adequacy of public textbooks and instructional materials for the 1920 school year, 2019-20 school year. I wasn't planning to read the resolution, but if you have any questions about the resolution.
Does anybody have any questions? Jesse?
I had a little question about it. It seems like there might be some extra text in here because it sort of accounts for contingencies that everything is met, but then there's a little section here that sort of says, be it further resolved that the following actions will be taken to ensure that all students have blah, 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 and then there's just sort of nothing after that. So I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, it seems like it was it was very comprehensive, but maybe some of it should have been deleted. Am I wrong, or is this?
So part of the resolution process is that you have to have within the resolution some place where if there was an
Okay.
inadequacy, that you would have to reprimand. So yeah, the wording, I completely agree with you. It sounds completely awkward,
Okay.
but there has to be the template has to be there so that if there were,
Yeah.
then, and then that's all based on public hearing.
Yeah, so just for the audience, it sort of has both contingencies, like, yes, we're doing everything right, but then also, we may not be doing everything right, and we're gonna do the following, and then it's just blank after that, if we're not fulfilling our mandate.
So the legal things
Okay,
catch on.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, you know.
No, you are.
A lawyer wrote this.
When I was updating it with the new years and the assurance and all the adoptions that we had, when I was reading through it, I had the same feeling you were like, why is this? But I
Okay.
understand that's.
As long as it's the way it should be, then.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2019-1010B?
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
11C, resolution number 2019-1010-C, Indigenous Peoples' Day, LCAP goal number 3. Heather?
It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution for Indigenous Peoples' Day in honor of Indigenous Peoples' Day, which is this next Monday. As the district, I believe this is the 3rd year of the resolution that we've recognized Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I'm guessing that our resolution, I know this is the same one we've used prior. I think it's odd, even though it's in quotes, that we still call it the discovery.
Oh.
And I kind of was, I'm in favor of Indigenous Peoples' Day. I just think that about the historical record of the discovery of the United States of America still hits me as maybe not insulting, but just odd.
But I think that's what the quotes are for, to make it
I know it
self-facetious,
is,
right?
but, right.
Are they using citing now? I know they changed it for,
Right.
for the one on November 2nd.
Right,
Were
for
they
the
using citing?
Portola.
Citing?
I don't know what I know I'm being nitpicky, but I feel like
It would bother me if the quotes weren't there.
The quotes are not referring to the indigenous people, it's referring to Columbus. And so
Right.
it's trying to correct it. So I think it's okay. It's
Okay.
bringing attention to the fact that the discovery of the United States was not.
Yeah. I guess what came to mind is when I'm talking to someone and they say, and the discovery, it's sort of an insulting, like, don't be offended insinuation. So I think that's where my head was
So
going.
I think we all agree in concept. I think it's the wording that we could probably do a better job of being.
Maybe something to consider for next year. I don't know. I don't want to hold it up with a lot
I
of.
thought the city was, had tweaked that a little bit and said cite, I don't know if it was citing or what the word was, but it wasn't discovery.
I actually saw something. There was, it's on Facebook. There was an Indigenous student at a school who was taking a test, and she was correcting it, like, she crossed off discovery, and I'm trying to remember the exact words that she put because it hit the nail on the head.
I would just
European
add,
citing
I would
or
just
something?
add the word supposed in front of the quoted discovery and then settle.
Yeah.
It's very, very clear then what the intention is. But anyway, that's just one solution.
I mean, again, if this is like the legal way that you address it, I'm
No, I
fine.
think
It just.
people are trying to figure out a way to accurately, bring in our history so that children and everyone understands what really occurred in this country. And so you have to bring people
Slowly.
into You don't have to, you do a little bit at a time. This will change, and then you won't have to, it'll be indigenous
But
people.
so maybe for, that's what I'm thinking, is maybe for next year.
next year we
In
find the
fact,
right
should we be
description.
doing this every year, or should we come up with a resolution that it is permanently?
I think it's a permanent piece, it's the recognition of it, is that we wanted to remind people of that. It's, this district decided 3 years ago that Columbus Day was, that on the second Monday in October, that it would be Indigenous people. So that's not in question, but I think it's kind of keeping it on people's, on the forefront of people's radar. So I would encourage us all in the next week, where in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day, is to think about what that right wording is, and whether we're checking Facebook or.
I'm afraid of what they said on Facebook.
I think the event the city's having will probably
We'll look for that
answer some of
wording
those
as well.
questions, because a lot of thought went into that, I think. I hope.
I personally think this is pretty well written.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you
don't
read
have
it,
an
and it's, in an effort to reveal a more accurate historical record of the discovery.
Yeah, right. But maybe we can move away from the air quotes and into a word or phrase that would be more
Or we
accurate.
could just recognize Indigenous people.
Well, I think, being Indigenous, a member of the Omaha tribe, the scariest thing for me is knowing that we're only like 1.7% of the population, and that there's still all these stereotypes of what an American Indian is. And so my fear is that the history books are not correct in schools.
I totally understand.
Or even these, and for whatever reason,
We have
we're gone one day, and then how is history going to remember us? So all that, I think is a transition, and I was talking with Heather about this, when I first got on the school board, nobody was really ready to go away from Columbus Day, and then it transitioned into Indigenous Peoples Day. And maybe we can even go a little further and have it be a holiday, and it's just been a transition, for a while, even since I first came into the living in Pacifica. When I first came in, the kindergarten teachers were still dressing up the kids as Indians and Pilgrims. And PAL, the baseball, had the little red Indian bases, and my daughter's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Well, that's an Indian." She's like, "I don't look like that." So I think it's just been a process.
It's a process. I mean, there's a lot of people who are not recognized for their contributions to this country, especially Native Americans and Black people, and it's a lot. We have a long way to go. This is just the beginning step to get people to recognize what has actually happened historically in this country.
Right.
A lot of people just still don't know. So I know that when you first got on this board, just trying to make that transition, you made progress. So you should, take a moment to be proud that you've done that. But going forward, there's going to be a lot of unlearning and relearning and pushing forward. It takes a lot.
Yeah, and I wish the teachers would have stayed, because they have transitioned, remarkably.
Yeah.
Even Ocean Shore School, so, so I wish they would have stayed, because they had a lot to do with it.
I think the presentation coming up on the 2nd, from what I've been hearing, the city and everyone involved put a lot of thought into it and a lot of research into it, so hopefully they've covered a lot of bases and solved those problems for us.
Yeah.
I hope. I know they tried to do it right.
So do we have a motion to approve? Resolution number 2019-1010C, Indigenous Peoples Day.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
11D, approval of CSEA initial proposal, and this falls under LCAP goals number 1, governance. Maria and Josie?
Okay, thank you. This is an action item that we, CSEA is bringing before the board tonight. And as part of the provisions of the ROTA Act and the Educational Employment Relations Act, it is required that the labor relations bring their sunshine publicly before the board and the community before we start negotiations. And so this is the CSEA Sunshine. And Jerry was going to present it, but I think that she stepped out. So it is attached. I don't know if you can bring it up on the PowerPoint or on the screen. Normally they would present, but now I'll let you review it, and then if you have any questions, we can take those questions.
Does anybody have any questions? No. Do we have a motion to approve?
How much no approve?
Second?
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
We're on to 11E, Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP. LCAP goals number 1, 2, and 3, governance. Will.
All right, so I just have a presentation here with regards to the LCAP, and the purpose of this presentation is to kind of give you an idea, of how we are doing with regards to our LCAP, our present LCAP, that our existing LCAP, how we're doing with regards to our outcomes of those LCAPs. So we'll be kind of looking a little bit closely at the metrics. So we'll be looking at the metrics. So I'm going to go through each goal and then kind of go through each of the metrics for those goals and then how we did. So the first goal is with regards to highly qualified staff, quality instructional material, and safe facilities. This is too big. So one of the metrics is to decrease the number of teachers without full credentials to 4, and we did not meet that. It was at 8, and just for a little context, in 2017-18 we had 7, so we actually increased by 1 from 2017-18 to 2018-19, and then the increasing the percentage of teachers that responded full implementation or sustainable with regards to providing instructional material that are aligned to state and adopted curriculum in the core areas. So again, our targets were there on the left, on the left, and our actuals from our January survey, January 2019 survey, are there on the right. We only hit one of our targets, which was mathematics. And again, to put this in context, in 2017-18, ELA 78% now compared to 75%. In ELD, we were at 42%, then we went down to 36%. In math, we were at 80%, and we went up to 88%. And in GSS, we were at actually 9%, so we did go up there. 11%. I would assume it's going to go even much more this upcoming year. And then history, social science was at 16% in 2017-18, and it did go up to 26%. And again, we didn't reach those targets. Our third metric within Goal 1 was around the fit reports, and we had all but one school have a good rating on the fit report, or we had one school that was at a fair rating. And that fit report is done every single year, so pretty soon we'll have a new fit report to present to you, but this was from the last year fit report. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to get out of the acronyms. Facilities, inventory, inventory tool. Yeah. Facilities inventory tool.
Okay, inspection.
Can we ask, would you prefer us asking questions now
Yeah,
or wait till the end?
No, you can ask me during.
Okay.
Or at the end, whichever you please.
Okay, so there's a reason why that one didn't make good on the fit. Do you know why it was? And is it something that we
I'd
can
have to look
address
back
quickly?
at it, but I know that we used in completing the fit, we used what we had taken from the facilities master plan. There was a more intensive look at sites that went beyond what the fit, the facility inventory tool would do, and we translated from that measurement or that tool into the fit. And I know I don't know the specifics of what it was, but I know that there was a lot of areas of fair, which average out the overall score.
Okay. And you know, perhaps the way we plan to spend bond money is going to take care of some of that.
I think we've done a pretty intensive job at looking at what's needed, and you know, we have different levels of what
it just has to be implemented, which is fine. Okay, I guess I just had another comment about the 1A, which is not altogether unsurprising, given what we know about the salary levels that we offer right now. And I guess there's kind of, you know, if you want to look at it from SEA's point, it's fully within our control. If you want to look at it from our point, the labor market's tough, and it's not in our control. And reality's in between, right? It's both reasons, right? So I think the negotiations hopefully are going to help address that situation, I think.
I'm actually looking forward to negotiations now.
So, these numbers on 1B are disturbing, to say the least. Are you going to talk about why some of these numbers are so low, or what we're going to do to increase?
So one of the things that was discovered during the stakeholder process last year, when we were going through this process last year, was that the questions that we were utilizing for this, which was basically given to us from the state to utilize, there was interpretations on what implementation and sustainability is versus, there was some confusion of that they were talking about that they're implementing in a sustainable program, not necessarily just connected to materials, that they have the materials to do that. So there was some confusion there. So we're going to be looking at our staff survey that we give through Panorama, that we utilize to put through that, and because we have the opportunity going into a new 3-year cycle for our LCAP, we can adjust that metric and make sure those questions are clear. Because the feedback we got from teachers who actually took the survey said they were confused. The interpretation of each question was confused.
So you're saying then that maybe some of this really is quite inaccurate, it sounds like.
And I'm not saying inaccurate one way or the other, I'm just saying inaccurate.
Yeah, but the thing is, if there's mismeasurement and it's been the same question that's been asked in both years, then on average, it's not gonna really change any value added or decrease from it, I don't think. I think we have to have a sobering look at where we set these targets and whether they're realistic or not. That's one part of it. But I don't want to foreshadow too much, but I'm going to. That 36% ELD, when we get to the outcomes for our English learners, which are, I'm sorry, I'm going to foreshadow, but deeply disappointing. It's interesting that we have a 36% rating that teachers feel that they have what they need. I mean, I know ELD and English learners aren't exactly the same thing. ELD with people that are native English speakers too, but that's just one data connection that I made very quickly when I got to the outcomes, and then I remembered back here. So sorry for foreshadowing, but
no, and you're absolutely right in my feeling, but I don't want to presume. But I mean, a couple of things here. First, our NGSS, we just really started our 6-8 program. We haven't really had an adoption for our K-5, although they are trying to implement the NGSS at this point. For our ELD program, I think this will be our first full year of having something connected to teachers, readers, and writers working project. Plus, there are a lot of other aspects that are probably not where they should be.
But you know, you look at the ELA and it's almost right there on our target.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, that looks like it's close enough to me.
Yeah.
Right? 75% versus 78%. We're almost there. So that's fine. Mathematics, looking great.
Yeah.
Right? So Bridges is, everybody feels happy with Bridges, and right?
CPM.
And, yeah, CPM. So
Right, but so not having seen the questionnaire, I mean, I look at this and I think, is there also a part of this that teachers can say, I don't feel like I'm doing full implementation because I feel like there's something more I need. So in that survey, there's that information, so the district can look at this and see if there are more supports needed or different supports needed.
Yeah, so I think when we relook at this metric, we may, decide to keep this metric, but we might have other metrics that are around this idea of sustainability of a program or a curriculum or adoption or standards, right? Being addressed, because there are other questions within this existing survey that we have that would address that. This is just one particular section of it.
Okay.
And it was developed 3 years ago when the state was saying, it was more about, do you have the materials to teach the standards? Yeah. So it was more that focus. Now that, again, I don't want to, again, presume that that's where it'll go, but that's what I'm thinking. They're going to say, well, okay, let's really have a strong metric to see if we're actually EGSS-friendly districts, or we're within the map even, or the ELA. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But I think it's more, it has to come from the data that we have right now.
Okay.
And it's a specific question that's asked on the state in terms of access to instructional materials, not overall, how do you think things are going, but just, do you have the materials?
Okay.
well, I want to be really clear that in the first column, the expected outcome column, those are goals that we have set. Those are not
Right.
prior year, right?
Right.
So that's why
I read the prior year on.
Yeah, that's right.
If I made this chart better, I probably would have put prior year, which I've done.
Yeah, but these are goals over on the left right now. These are goals that we set out for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So I think
Right.
we do have to think about that, but we also have to look at why is there 36% of our ELD instructors that are not feeling like they've got what they need.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, that the goals is an interesting piece, because in the new template, and I just saw a little bit of a preview of what it might look like, the LCAP new template, it's going to ask us 3 years down the line, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
And you've got to put a number or a metric or whatever for 3 years down the line. And it doesn't ask you to change it as the year, so that's different than this one. We were able to adjust them as we went along. The new template is
Yeah.
it?
I haven't looked at that. They just issued public comment
Yeah.
requests for that.
Yeah,
So
and I just went through it.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so, and then, any other questions?
None on this.
And then goal 2, this is with regards to academic achievement in all core subject areas. And then, so this one, this slide shows the expectations of maintaining a 17% reclassification rate. And that was met because we were at a 23%, and I'll kind of explain why that occurred, or that was good news, but why it occurred. And then also an increase in the percentage of LPAC test takers. There was no true metric or where we want to be, because we were transitioning from CELP to LPAC, so we didn't have a baseline for that. But our present level is 22.5% of our students have improved the performance level and have have maintained the 4, which is the well-developed level. The baselines was determined by those students who took the summative LPAC in both 2018 and spring 2018 and spring 2019, and that number was divided by those who either gained 1 performance level or maintained the 4 levels. So you had all the students who took the LPAC summative in 2018, spring of 2018, and 2019, and you took that number and then you divided it by the number of students that actually moved up a level. Say they went to 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, or they were at 4 and they stayed at 4. They didn't go down. Just to kind of give you numbers to put to that, we had 180 students that were at that took the test both in 2018 and 2019, the summative assessment, and 42 of them increased 1 or maintained that 4 level. Number 4 level. Is that clear?
That's very clear, but there's the flip side of that story is there's 76% that either stayed at the same level or slipped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Now, and the other piece of it is now, when we were talking about SELT, when basically this metric was established previously before it was reworded, we were looking at a 5-point scale, we were looking at a 4-point scale. Also, the state of California, after the LPAC was taken the first time, they took all the scores from across the state and they had to recalibrate the scale score that made you a 1, made you a 2, made you a 3, made you a 4, because they were looking at a certain percentage that should be in that reclassification play. It should be around 15%, but they were saying that it was almost over 30%. So they had to reclassify that number. How that pans out on the dashboard, because they're going to have to recalibrate the previous one, or every district in the county is going to look at, it's going to look like they've gone down. So they're going to do some recalibration of last year, the previous year's score, to allow that to happen. So that's just a little background information on that. So I'm feeling that when we create this metric for our English learners, it's around reclassification and around our LPAC performance levels, we're going to have to really take a good look at how they're calculating it statewide. All right, so the other part of Goal 2 is the ELA in both the CAS scores in both ELA and in math. So the first chart you have there, or table you have there, is the English language arts. And this is the average distance from level 3. And so, I think you understand, this is the metric that we've used all along, and there's a minimum standard met, and then you're either above that minimum standard yet on average for all those students in that particular student group or all across the district, or you're below that minimum standard met. So if you look at the second column, that's the 2017-18 actuals, and then the 2018-19 target is the next column, and then the 2018-19 actual is the third column. So you can see how we progress from the 2017-18 actual to the 2018-19 actual, but you also can see the target in the middle there for that. I do have an asterisk next to the English learners, and the reason why I have that asterisk next to the English learners is that the English learners are not inclusive in that particular number with fluent English proficient, or not the fluent English, with redesignated, RFEP we call them, redesignated students. So but the target was set, because the target was set for the California dashboard, and the dashboard includes all your present ELs and your RFEPs for the last 4 years.
Yeah, so just to let you know, CDE tried to get a waiver on that with the feds, and they lost after petitioning it a couple times and going out there and saying we want to be able to include our RFEPs in there, and the feds wouldn't have it.
Yeah, so on the dashboard, you have the overall score for English language arts, and they have English learners, right, as a group, and that includes RFEP. But then farther down, they have it separated between the two, and I think they do that with the federal version. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, Jesse, because I literally Googled it to find out why they did it, and I found out.
I think the letters are public now. You know, they're petitions, and the responses from Department of Ed, from the federal department.
So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because it looks like those numbers, -58 and then -73, they're way below a target. Why would you set a target at -13 when it's not even close, And that's because the -13 is inclusive of the RFEP.
But we should be able to calculate 2018-19 actuals that include the RFEP on our own, right?
We should.
Just to be able to see what that
But to
what
be
that really
quite
is.
honest with you, I tried to do that and calculate it, and I didn't feel comfortable putting it on a chart in front of the board, because I don't know if I was accurate. Because the California dashboard takes not takes liberties, but they have their own calculations about who they include and who they don't include, and I didn't want to, it's a moving, English learners are a moving target. There's, they were, and then now they're RFEP, and then, so it was hard.
Well, offline, let me know if you want to go over some calculations, and then I can run them by some people at CDE. And see if they're okay. All right? Because it's interesting. I mean, we do want to know. That number still might be bad.
Yeah.
Right? Even with the RFEPs in there. But we should know.
We will know in December when they come out with the dashboard. We will know that number.
Sure.
Yeah, because they'll include it.
Yeah.
And then they'll include it separated. So they'll include both of them. All right, so that is the ELA, and then this is the math, and it's the same idea. The chart's the same exact way. As you can tell, we got all not met, and it's that's with regards to those targets that are in that center column. Although there's some progression from one, some groups did progress from 17-18 to 18-19.
Yeah, and some didn't, right?
Some didn't.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, so Filipinos came down, and then it's really just flat for Hispanics, right?
Yeah.
Can you flip back?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at my screen.
Sorry. The other thing is, and I was going to say this at the end, but I can say it now. When we go into the work study, there'll be a little more. You'll be able to more go into depth. We're going to have it designed in a way where you can go around and be able to look at this data more in depth and even school specific for you to look at. So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to hog the time, but I was rather surprised when I saw this. I was sort of disappointed because we had made progress the year before on some of these subgroups, and I knew that we were, in trouble with socioeconomic disadvantage and with special education. But now, we arguably can add EL to that mix. So I've got some pretty deep concerns with what's going on.
Right, and again, my question, the data is one piece, but what are we doing with this to push it forward? That's what I'll be really interested in hearing, is how we're now using this information to actually, improve things.
Yeah. No, and that to me is the exciting part of it, because that should drive our what we write in the LCAP.
Mhm.
That should be the driving force. The principals and the sites and the school site councils at each of the sites are going through the SIPSA process, and it's very much aligned to what we're doing on the LCAP, but specifically for their school. They're getting literally the same data that we hear at the schools. And they're starting that process now of developing those SIPSAs and adjusting them based off seeing this need. And again, next week when we are in the work study, you'll see a little bit more about that, and then you can question that piece of it. That's the part where we just have to start asking questions.
Okay.
Also, one more thing about the English learners. It wasn't in my notes, but I'm going to add this. There is a significant number less of English learners from 17-18 to 18-19 because we reclassified 85 students from one group, one seedbeds day to the next seedbeds day. So that's how they do it in DataQuest. That's how they collect it. They collect it from census day to census day. And so there's a significant less. And if you think about it, those 85 were reclassified. So they're, especially when you're separating out the numbers, those numbers are it magnifies those numbers. Goal 3 is around well-rounded education, positive and safe climate, and parent participation. And our first the chart you see here is around suspension rates. And again, overall, we're looking at a reduction for the most part in our suspensions. Well, overall we are from 47 to 44. And our numbers, if we were comparing them County-wise and state-wise, we're on the very, very low end of it. So in comparing ourselves to our targets, it may not look great, but when you're looking at 1.8%, I mean, we'd love to have 0%, but 1.8% is extremely low for a specific group, and I've just used that as an example. But you can see, again, it's set up in a way where you have the one column is the actuals, and then we had our targets, and then we had our 18-19 actuals. So you can the met not met is did we meet the target? But if you wanted to look further about comparing it to what was 17-18, for the most part we did decrease. There's a few areas like socioeconomically disadvantaged and these students with disability, even though it's the same number, we had less students with disability, so the percentage rate was higher. These rates are they're a percent of the whole school, based on the percent of the whole school, and is the actual number of students suspended. It's not incidences. So the way that rate is determined is by number of students. So you may have more incidences of suspension, but these are just the number of students that were suspended.
So I'm a little disappointed not to see American Indian up there, because I know we have an American Indian population in our schools. And I know that there's been some suspensions. So I'm just curious, I know that the state doesn't require, but for our school district, can we know
I
what
will
those
actually
are?
talk to you offline about that situation.
Okay. But can we still see it on the slides, just so the board knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
So on this particular chart, we can add it onto that particular chart. When we do the board study session on Wednesday, and we look at school-specific data, we actually did take off the ones that had a number of, I forgot whether it was 7 or 5 students or less, because I feel like people can identify those particular students. So in the study that's going to be more public, we will do that. But I will talk to you about that other situation.
I think what happened here was that these were all, because I remember we talked about this before.
I've talked about it every year.
Laverne, I included in the LCAP an asterisk next to it because they weren't providing the public available data because the number was so small. I think it was less than 11.
Yeah.
And I think it is actually even less than that. We have 4 of the schools that have 1 at each school. And so, and I don't know, I'd have to go back to see what the numbers are, so.
So it's for reporting requirements. I think that you can deduce that there were 3, because your all students is 44. And then if you add up all of the minority categories, except for the one that's missing, I think you come up with 41.
But I think there's more than one, I think there's more than one group that's not.
Oh, okay, well, so it's between.
It's a private.
It's between 0 and 3.
Yeah. But Laverne, I'm gonna look into that to make sure because it's on. I know it's in the LCAP and it's listed. We have an asterisk next to it. It's too small of a number of students to do that. But I don't know why it didn't show up in my chart because I literally took that chart from there, off there. But
it might just be off the page here. Your table might extend off the page, so you can't see it.
No, it would have been. Yeah, maybe, but I don't think so.
And in alphabetical order.
About some data
Like
for African Americans in the district. It doesn't show up because it's not.
You want to know?
It makes it.
Oh, you want to talk about it? Oh, okay, so I see that.
Well, it just concerns me because if, I'm going to go back to it, if we're only 1.7% of the population and 3 kids are being suspended, then what is the real percentage when you break that down into our school district?
And then this, the other part of goal 3 is the metrics around our surveys, the parent surveys and our student surveys. And you can look at it there, but there wasn't much difference between the 17-18 and the 18-19 surveys. They're very close. I mean, we're down 1% or went up 2%. The surveys, I think that's another area that we need to really kind of spell out in when we develop our new LCAP about what areas we want to really look into, and hopefully have some more data in these areas that are more telling.
So I have a quick question about this. I'm not sure if you're able to, but do you know who these parents are with respect to the types of needs their students might have? Because I'm very interested to see if these favorable responses correlate at all with those groups that are doing, basically white kids, right? Those students that are doing better, and whether the parents of those subgroups that are not doing very well tend to be less satisfied. And I think that would be very interesting to me if these numbers go together, or if the parents may not have a clue how their kids are doing.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, that would be something definitely.
So I'm not sure, do you have the information on the parent survey of what types of students their children are? In terms of what types of family, is it a low-income family or?
No, I don't believe we weren't able to, ask that on the survey. But I do know that we had a large amount of families that returned the survey. It was over 1,000 families returned the survey, so which was a really good, this 18-19 was a really good number to receive. And for our students, we had over 90% of our students 3rd through 8th grade take it because they took it at school, the survey. So there's definitely needs to be work on how we can identify, if there's a possibility of identifying student groups within that, but also be able to, what is positive about the way the survey's gone out is that, and we're gonna have a presentation on it at some point to the board around Panorama, just Panorama explaining how it works, is that the teachers can drill down to the students about how they answer those particular questions. And that's something where if they see an area within their school or even within a particular question that is lower, if they set a goal to address that situation, they can literally drill down to the student who maybe unfavorably answered that particular question. So that they're able to not only address it school-wide, but even target students that they may need to.
Can you connect students and their parents at all?
No.
Okay.
You can connect them to the school, the parents are connected to the school, but not connected to.
Sure.
Yes.
You always mention Panorama, and is there any way that I could maybe watch you go into Panorama, just so I can see what it is you're always talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it collects all the data, but just so that, I could see what it looks like. And I don't know if there's anybody else, who might be interested, but.
Well, it'd be really helpful if you can literally just send us a test link.
Oh, no, you guys all have the link. In fact, maybe.
Well, I think I took it. I think I took it.
So one of my,
No, I mean, you have access to preview. You have, you have viewing
privileges. Yeah, sure.
To it. So
well, one of my interests as we take Panorama, we have Panorama data, but not many people can say what it is and why it's valuable. And so on the 24th of October, a Panorama presenter is going to come out and work with the principals, the school psychologists, the counselors, just so that we know what it is and how it's useful and can use it in our work. And from there, we think the next step is that Will would present to you what that means. And then if you want more, we could have the presenter come. She's not local, but come back and do a presentation. Because it's really valuable data. It tells us, to think that I feel great that 89% feel like they have a say in the decision making or that they feel involved. It would be more helpful if we knew the groups, and I'm not completely convinced that we can't, but we may or may not know all of that power, and so kind of short answer is we're going to work with our leadership teams and our school support folks to really learn it, and then give a presentation to you. And if you'd like to go deeper than that, I think that would be helpful.
So will the parent and student survey, the parents and students are surveyed separately,
Yeah,
correct?
so the student survey, we're actually in the middle of surveying the students for this year, right now. We're in the middle of the window.
Okay, because I'm wondering with the parent survey, I'm thinking, you know, if a parent is feeling connected to the program, they might be more likely to fill out a survey that they're feeling connected to the program. So I'm just wondering, I mean, I think it's valuable information, but I just wonder if there's sort of an inherent bias that isn't going to capture that group that is being left out.
So we'd be less concerned about any bias if the response rate was really, really high. And so.
But was the response
well,
rate for parents and?
Well, I don't know, you said you got 1,000 responses, but I'm not really sure
Right.
what the denominator is.
Over 1,000 responses, and it was better than the year, better than the year before.
But 1,000 from students and parent
No,
group combined?
No, just parent.
Just parents. So what
Just
was the
parents.
denominator? That's the question. Out of that
Little
1,000.
less than 4,000. But that was, because the reason why we had 4,000 is because we had both, like if there's two parents in a household, they both got it, which was why there was an increased number of response. The other piece is, and we're gonna take this even to another level, is that we're gonna provide opportunities at open house and at these places to have kiosks, and then there's gonna be like this requirement, or not requirement, but like encouragement for them to go on and actually put their, respond to the survey through there. So we did, I feel that we did a really good job of increasing it from the previous year to this year, but we still need to continue to increase it. I would love it to be more of like at a 4,000, 2,000 families.
Well, so the thing is, if you gave it to both parents, right, then your upper bound of every family having one respondent is 50% of the families, right? That's your upper bound for that 1,000, right? So Department of Education tries to get an 85% response rate. So you're fairly sure that the bias can't, you still have 15% that didn't respond to the survey, and they could be systematically different from the ones that did, i.e. in your example, the ones that don't feel rosy about.
Right.
Right? But I mean, it's good that it's increasing, and we should definitely keep it increasing and do whatever we can, hand out cookies or something, you know?
Well, they,
do your survey, here's a cookie.
It's also interesting, Panorama gives this survey, so this survey is around climate. They also give out another survey that's around social emotional, so it's called core survey, right? They were, in 2017-18, when we got a response rate, they were like ecstatic, this is one of the highest response rates in giving a survey out for the first time in a school district. They were like, and it was like 18%. And I was like, why are you so excited about 18%? But they were saying that that's a high response rate. So, I mean, I kind of, in my mind, dismissed that. I think we can do a lot better than that. So we did better in 18-19 to open the move that way. But apparently, nationally, that's an incredible response rate to get from families. Students, you should be around 90%, because you have a controlled place. Instead of but for families.
Well, they don't have to take it if they don't want to,
Yeah.
right? There are
Oh, yeah.
subject
That's why we
rights
don't
here,
have-
so.
That's why we don't have 100%. They can say, no, I'm not taking it, so they don't take it. All right, and then the last slide, I think this is my last slide, is around attendance rate, chronic absenteeism, and pupil expulsion. So pupil expulsions, we've always been at 0%. So, I mean, if we ever are not at 0%, then we can address that. But that's great. Attendance rate, and it's always interesting because attendance rate, you go 3.92 for attendance rate, that means 3.92% of people are attending school. No, it's the reverse. So it should be the non-attendance rate, so it may be confusing there. Overall, in that area, we met, and then for our English learners, we did not meet. We dropped from the 2017-18. For our socioeconomic disadvantage, we did drop, and we did meet it. And then also for our special ed, we dropped and we met it. Chronic absenteeism, that's really the one that kind of really stands out because it talks about what are students that are missing more than 10%, so more over 17 days of school a year. And in 16-17, we had 238 students that were chronically absent district-wide. In 17-18, we had 199, and in 18-19, we had 195. One of the things that's interesting about that is there is a thing called cumulative enrollment, and there's enrollment. And I've just learned this recently. Cumulative enrollment includes those short-term, those students that are just here for short-term, or they just happen to be here for a short period of time during the year. They're included in the 17 and 18 rate. They're not included in the 18 and 19. That means that they were here for a certain period of time and then they went to a different district or different school in a different district. So that particular rate of 5.7% is actually going to be on our dashboard lower. We had 195 that were, but that was including of all students that were chronically absent, but our overall number is going to be higher. So
those students were not counted in 17-18?
Those students, no, 17-18, those, the 199 that were chronically absent were in comparison to our cumulative enrollment.
That's what I'm saying. So the 17-18 is not cumulative.
So
it doesn't
like,
include those sort of transient students
like,
that are only here for a month or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's like 30 or 35 students, but I couldn't exact the number, so I couldn't actually put it in as a cumulative number. I just didn't want to take that liberty.
Sure.
Anyway, so that's the one thing about the chronic absenteeism. So the next step, as I was saying, is that in the work study, we're going to go deeper into the data as it relates to the LCAP outcomes. We're at that part of the year that we need to look at the LCAP outcomes that we have presently for this era. And then it'll also allow us to reflect and look for areas of focus and for the new 3-year LCAP, but also for what our outcomes are. What are our goals? What are our measurements around those goals? And then, and then we start going through the process of what our actions are going to be. The new 3-year LCAP, the way the template looks, it looks like we're going to be allowed to have a focus area. Because one of the big issues with putting together an LCAP for a district is, first, there's two main challenges. First is trying to get the stakeholders, all your stakeholders involved in the process and stuff like that. That's a tough battle because you want to get all those populations involved in that process. But the second thing is that there was this thing about throwing everything into the LCAP, every single thing that you do into the LCAP, because you wanted to be called out. You naturally wanted all that stuff to be called out. This new LCAP, I think, is going to be this idea is like you're going to have this focus area, and then you're going to have this other area where you say, well, these are all the other things we do, but here's our 4 or 5 or 6 real focus areas based on what we're seeing in the data and based on what we're getting input from all of our stakeholders. So that's an exciting piece about it. So that's going to be we're going to begin that process next week in the work study.
Can you explain why under the chronic absenteeism, English learners in special education was not calculated?
You were trying to think.
I was going to
skip over that.
Like, not yeah, really. Let's go back to that.
Part of it has to do with this cumulative enrollment of English learners and enrollment of English learners. And again, English learners in special education is a little bit this way too, but almost more for English learners. That's a little like a floating number. It changes because, again, DataQuest and the state, they go from CBEDS day to CBEDS day. We operate on 16-17, 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. That's how we look at it. So I was able to get the 18-19 targets. 18-19 chronic absentee rates and the 17-18 is because those calculations were already. The 17-18, I was able to get those calculations because those are already in DataQuest and they've already been calculated. So CalPADS has already reported that. It's all, those pieces are already in place. The 1819, it's not fully certified, you know, like that data. So there's calculations on when do you start, you know, like we'd have to go back and look at that seabeds day in 17, 18 to the seabeds day in 18 to 19 and calculate how many English learners were in that group during that time. And unfortunately, Data Zone doesn't do that right now. It's not able to say during this section of time, these are the total number of English learners that should be included, and these are the total number of.
But you were able to get the socioeconomically disadvantaged.
So there is because we determined socioeconomically disadvantaged at the beginning, aside from a few enrollment people who get enrolled, but we pull in those applications, and at one point we get a number of our socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Okay.
English learners, you know, they come in, they're in and out.
Flux.
They're in flux and special ed to a degree. So I attempted to try to calculate it, and I could have thrown a guess in there, but again, I didn't feel comfortable putting it up on the board.
So then those numbers are always going to be like a year out, is what you're saying going forward? Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm very excited about, is changing the metrics so that I could put numbers in there for a board presentation.
Or better yet, we asked Data Zone whether they're working on it or they could work on it. Because I don't think we're the only district
Right.
that wants this from Data. And remember, it's a subscription service. It's not, we're paying for it. So we shouldn't be shy to ask them what they can do for us.
Yeah, and I've talked to, in fact, I didn't talk today, I talked to other districts with regards to this, and they say, oh, we just use the 17, 18 data in our presentation for the LCAP.
Sometimes you use the year before, and that's not.
It's dated material, so you're talking about your needs now, but you're looking a year and a half before. Sometimes it's not. I don't think that's beneficial because things change, especially around English learners, because we have the transition, CELT to LPAC. We had 6 students reclassified one year and 85 the next, whatever, CBED's day, year to year. So there's a lot of flux that's occurring there. So a long-winded answer is no, I wasn't able to calculate.
Got it.
So now can we start the question and comments period?
It's up there, you said, but I thought you were done.
I'm done.
We have to speak to them.
We actually have Joan Weideman.
Is that okay if I speak after?
Yeah, sure.
To this large group.
So, Joan Weideman, IBL math teacher. So language arts and language is not my strength, hence I'm a math teacher. But having said that, the CPM curriculum, or college preparatory math curriculum that we've adopted, which I think is fabulous, is very language intensive in terms of the reading required by the students and the writing that we require of our students. And as I listened to this ELD, having had students who've walked in my classroom who speak zero English, you know, the challenges for me is how do I support them, and I'm kind of pecking my way through this. But a comment that struck me tonight, and if I misheard it, I forgive me, was that when we're talking about English language learners, we're really focused on the language arts teachers. But I think if we work at a comprehensive level in terms of the math teachers and the social, and I think social science kind of gets lumped in with that, but really look at what helping the math teachers who don't have language arts training, at least the couple of us at IBL, maybe the people at other schools have multiple subjects, providing that support not only to our English language learners, but also helping our English-speaking students, helping them write better about math. And so I think when we're looking at any kind of goal in the district, that we're being inclusive, including all the teachers. Meaning even if you've got a math goal, making sure that the teachers across the grade levels understand what that goal is so that we can be working in concert with each other. And I think the Ks are probably a little better because they're smaller versus IBL where we're more compartmentalized. And I think we do a great job. But I think having more support of language training for our math teachers and possibly our science teachers could really benefit and help support what we're doing across the board, particularly for our ELD students. Thank you.
other questions or comments?
Well, no, I think that it's a great point. Am I allowed to directly converse with
Well,
this
you
or not?
can't.
Or- Okay, then I'm
You
going
can talk to them, but not.
Right. So I'm talking to the whole, I'm talking to my colleagues. I'm talking to my colleagues here. I'm talking to my colleagues here, but I think Ms. Weideman brought up a really good point, and it might not, often I think you'll find teachers in specific subject areas siloed off from one another. And I think in this case, it seems the math teachers might be able to learn a lot from the ELA teachers that are servicing English learners, right? Or the ELD specialists, right? And so that's one way to do it. In addition to providing additional training for the math teachers in that area. But I'm sort of thinking, when you think of a professional learning community, often it's sort of subject specific, and that doesn't get at this problem, right? Anyway, that's my two cents to my esteemed colleagues.
I think Ms. Weideman brought up an excellent point, because when she was speaking, I was just rethinking about the experiences of my special ed son. And he wasn't particularly doing well in writing and spelling, but some of the work that he was getting in science and math required those things. And I'm like, how can he make these goals if he's not able to put together, a paragraph, especially that's supposed to be focused on one thing. So I completely agree with that. Completely agree. Anybody else have comments, questions?
Just a heads up about, so we really deliberately put this data in front of you this week instead of next week, so that it's not your first time seeing it. That was important. As Will said, we will be sharing CASP data charts. CASP data is now public, and at district-wide we were flat, both in language arts and math. We did see some nice growth from Ortega in both language arts and math. But you'll be seeing that both district level and by site, broken down by student group. And then the trick and the challenge to this is presenting this information so that people can go around and look at it. And we're going to work really hard not to come up with solutions on next Wednesday. And part of it is we want to establish a known set of facts. So our LCAP is going to be based on this data, and we're going to have something to point to in terms of this being fact. Then about a month passes, and you will look at the school plans for student achievement, and you will see some of the what's, the how things get enacted there. And then in LCAP development, what you will see is a focused work on language might be a great example of that, because English speakers as well as English learners need more opportunity to talk in class, and they need more support in that. And so the LCAP development part will happen in the January through June piece of that. So it's just part of the process. So I will encourage everyone as we do this work is not to rush to solutions next week. What we want to do is identify what are known facts for our district. We may have preconceived based on what it's been in the past, but let's look at it with fresh eyes at this time. So just one more set of information is I think it's always hard to think about room setup for a work study around that, and I don't necessarily know how many people to expect, but I was thinking just to be able to use the walls is probably keeping us up here, and so that there would be more room along the walls as opposed to going into the middle of the room.
Okay, so moving on to 11F, Constitution Day, LCAP goal number 2, governance. Will?
Yes, so Constitution Day was on September 17th, and as is annually provided, we want to recognize the ratification of the United States Constitution. And so schools have done various different activities, and in the memo that you have, it listed out the activities. If you remember from last year, a lot of them are similar to the ones that were done last year. It was amazing. But I did get reports from each and every school about what they were doing, not only school-wide, but also within individual classrooms. So, and they're listed there. Any questions about that?
Okay, so moving on again. 11G, public report on developer fees, operation. Josie.
Okay, thank you. This is an information item. It's an annual requirement that we make public notice to the community and to the board and the school district that how we spend our developer fees. So developer fees are earned by the school district when there's housing development in the city, for example, in Pacifica, if there's renovations or new housing projects, which we really have very little of. And when you do earn those fees, the board has very restrictive areas where they can spend those funds on. They're supposed to be spent on areas of growth in enrollment, and we haven't really had student enrollment growth in the last several years. If we do have enrollment growth, we can spend the fees on portables, new portables, or fixing the roads or new classrooms. So we haven't had a lot of income the last several years, and we haven't had any enrollment. The good news now is that we have our bond and we have our facilities master plan. And we can kind of couple these fees with some of the projects in the facilities master plan in areas, for example, now Cabrillo has a new student classroom, and so there is growth at that school. So we will start planning together with the facilities master plan on how we can kind of spend these fees moving forward. There is a balance sheet attached that shows the beginning fund balance in the fund, and then the income that was earned. There was interest income, and then we didn't have any expenditures this year, and then the ending fund balance. What is the ending fund balance is also on the resolution. It's $442,000. So it's over this last several years it's kind of grown, and now we have a little chunk of money to match with our facilities master plan and kind of strategize in that way on how we can spend those fees. Yes?
So, in looking this over and thinking about how we're often discussing declining enrollment, I see it's under a government code, but what you're saying then is as we go forward, if we do continue declining enrollment, we will have this accumulating money that we cannot spend?
Well, we have to get some legal advice on that as well. Lozano Smith has kind of been our person when it comes to developer fees. There are some other things you can do, but like right now we have a kinder class at Cabrillo, a new classroom. So there is an area there where if we have something in our facilities master plan for that area of growth, we could use these funds and match it with our other funds to do something over there. So we're not completely declining. We've been somewhat a little bit of a decline and then steady, and then looks like a little bit of a bump this year. So I'm hopeful that we can look at strategically now at our facilities master plan and get some assistance on strategizing on spending these fees.
But it would be good to know further out too, right? Just in case, you know, we continue in this area. And it's kind of frustrating to think we have this money. I mean, I know all of our money is you can only use it for this or that, but to think we might be getting some fees in that just sit when we have needs.
So yeah, now we really need to work on this. And it hasn't been a lot historically, and the balance has slowly grown. So it is now a good time to look at how we can strategically spend this.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is something I absolutely know nothing about, but are developer fees only generated by new projects, or say, what about our staff housing? Is that going to generate any developer fees?
I don't know if I don't know for sure if we're going to be subject to that, but I'll look into that. It is also on remodeling. So if you see some houses here in addition, so we get fees for that as well.
Okay.
So that's a good question. We'll find out about if we're going to charge ourselves.
Well, it's just interesting to do. I mean,
we don't want to pay
you think of that as kind of forced savings for further renovation or expansion, right?
Right.
Is what it would be, but just. strange.
The county's really encouraging the auxiliary units now in the backyards. Would those,
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
would
I
those
saw
be
that.
remodeled enough to give us a fee?
Well, they have, whenever you have
That's
to go
new
to the city
construction.
That's
and
new,
get
yeah.
a permit, that's what triggers the developer fee.
But I know the county's trying to remove a lot of fees for them to encourage that, so I didn't know if that was one of the
Well, they
fees
would-
they may
yeah,
remove.
Still need
I
permits
would think
though,
they would
right?
still
Yeah.
be considered construction, like additions.
Yeah, but they're trying to clear as many of the fees as possible.
Well, I'm going to have coffee with Jerry tomorrow, so maybe I'll chat with him.
And Mazzetti's?
Yes,
It's Java with Jerry.
Java, excuse me.
Are there any other questions on that? No? So, moving on to future agenda items.
Okay, so we've over-explained what we're doing at the work study next week. So then our next board meeting is October 30th. Any,
I just have an idea. I work for Jefferson Elementary, and twice a month, we get a copy emailed to us of our agenda, so I can look and see what my district that I'm working for is going to have at the next meeting. And then about a week and a half or 2 weeks after that, I get minutes from, not minutes, I'm not going to say minutes, but it would be like this agenda, and then it would say held or was taken, you know, so that, I know Suzanne's looking at me like more work, more work. But I truly appreciate knowing what our district is doing, and I was able to find out, you know, that they're cutting the dean positions, that they're cutting Soul Shop. So, you know, just as an employee, you know, we get these things. And so I was just wondering if that's something we could do for our employees. Is, you know, just email it to everybody's email address so they can look and see what the agenda is, and then, you know, making a simpler kind of agenda, you know, held, you know, like it'll say Pledge of Allegiance and then it'll say held, but I could show you a copy.
we
you know,
would
or
like to see a copy. Suzanne and I have been talking for probably about 6 months and have picked out a couple of districts whose board summaries we really like. And so we'll give it a shot. I can't promise you that we'll get it done by October 30th, but we'll get started on something like that.
Well, I think it would just pull in more people too to be involved if they knew, you know, what
I
was.
thought we did email it out, no?
So the agenda goes out? I mean, it goes out to
all
people who
employees,
want
right?
it. It doesn't go out to all employees.
Oh, it's not
Like
automatic,
employees.
Right.
okay.
But I think that the kind of key is the summary of what happened at the board meeting as opposed to everything. And I think that especially as we're working hard with communicating the board policies to principals and therefore teachers, any changes in board policies would be on there. So we'll work on, we'll make our target 6 weeks from now, is to have
Thank you.
something that we can send out, and we'll prototype it with you.
So I just wanted to keep one thing. I know, really busy schedule, and we've got LCAP coming up here. But one thing that I want to keep in our minds is there's some discussion about really trying to look at sort of a digital divide within the district, and in particular, you know, which types of students have internet access and which don't, and what types of disadvantages that puts them at. So I just want to keep that in our head to come back to at some point, because I think it's really, really just increasingly important.
It's on my whiteboard, and
It
so
made the whiteboard list.
It made the
Okay.
whiteboard list, and the other part is I do believe that could be part either, whether that's parent survey or something that could be discussed in LCAP, because more than a few people have come to me to say, you know, if your assessment is this CASP and it gets taken online, maybe not all of our kids have the same advantages. So it's a challenging problem to solve, because there's not just the device, it's also the internet access, and so that we can begin that discussion.
Okay, great.
Any other future agenda items?
Okay, thank you very much.
Meeting adjourned at 8:50.